Every bride in America used to be given silver she would never use. For decades, the most popular wedding gift in the country was a set of sterling silver flatware, and it lived in a felt-lined box, tucked inside a dining room cabinet, pulled out maybe twice a year if the couple was feeling ambitious. Then, carefully hand-washed, dried, polished, and put right back where it came from. This is the story of how a tradition thousands of years old, one originally designed to protect women, turned into a strange middle-class ritual, and why, right now, in this very moment, millions of Americans are opening their mother's cabinets, holding a tarnished fork, and wondering what on earth to do with all of it. To understand it, you have to go back, way back. The earliest known wedding gifts weren't gifts at all, in the way we think of them. They were transactions. Thousands of years ago, a groom's family would pay what was called a bride price, compensating the bride's family for the loss of her labor, land, animals, money. And in return, her family would often provide a dowry, assets that traveled with her into the new household. By 1754 BCE, this was written into law. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest legal documents we have, laid out rules for dowries, what they were, and what happened to them in divorce or death. And here's the detail that matters most. One of the core functions of a dowry was protection. Protection for the wife against the very real possibility of mistreatment by her husband and his family. It was a conditional gift. If he divorced her, if he abused her, if he committed some grave offense against her, it was supposed to be returned. In other words, the original wedding gift wasn't a toaster. It was an insurance policy. And the preferred currency of that insurance policy? Precious metal. Because metal held its value. Metal could be sold. Metal could be carried out of a house in the middle of the night, if it came to that. In medieval Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, when a couple reached their 25th wedding anniversary, the wife was often crowned with a wreath of silver. Her husband might receive a silver buckle to mark the same day. In Norway, there was a tradition called the festegave, a gift given at the betrothal to fasten the agreement. It might be silver spoons, a silver teapot, jewelry, sometimes land. And the crucial part, the bride was entitled to claim all of it as hers, should she ever become a widow. Silver wasn't decorative. In a world where a woman often could not own property, could not earn her own income, could not sign her own contracts, silver was survival. So how on earth did we get from that to an untouchable set of forks, slowly tarnishing in a drawer? For that, we need to go to 1840, the year Queen Victoria married Prince Albert, and accidentally invented modern wedding culture. Victoria wore a white gown, and there are two myths about why. The first is that white symbolized purity. The second, and you'll hear this one constantly, is that white was the cheap option, that she was being frugal. Both are wrong. In 1840, white was expensive. It was difficult to produce and nearly impossible to keep clean. Only a wealthy woman could afford to wear white at all. The real reason is far better. Victoria's gown was trimmed with handmade Honiton lace, and Britain's lace makers were being destroyed, driven into poverty by the arrival of machine-made textiles. As head of state, she chose a large piece of their handmade lace deliberately to support a dying craft and put money back into their hands. And she chose white, because white was simply the best color to show that lace off. The middle and upper classes of the Western world did not care about any of that reasoning. They cared about the picture. Almost overnight, white became the wedding color, and the elaborate Victorian wedding was born. Before Victoria, most weddings were quiet affairs, held at home. No piles of presents, no receptions, no curated displays of gifts. A couple might receive land or money from their parents, but they expected to build their household themselves. That changed fast. As weddings grew grander through the Victorian era, so did the gift-giving. And in the last decades of the 19th century, a new custom appeared that would echo for over 100 years. Brides began displaying their wedding gifts in the parlor, in the dining room, laid out so that friends and neighbors could come, browse, and read the little tags to see exactly who had given what. And it went further. Newspapers began printing lists of the wedding gifts, alongside the names of the people who gave them. You can imagine what that did. It created an arms race. Guests felt pressure to give more expensive and more impressive gifts, not because the bride needed them, but because their own reputation was on the table for the neighbors to inspect. By the 1870s, it was obvious enough that the famous minister Henry Ward Beecher publicly complained that guests had stopped giving useful things because they were too busy exhibiting their own status. And another magazine of the era put it even more sharply. To give massive silver services, it warned, and force unhappy souls to live up to them is a cruel kindness. A cruel kindness. They saw the whole thing coming in the 1870s, but the machine was already running. In 1924, Marshall Field's department store in Chicago invented something that would formalize the whole system: the bridal registry. For the first time, an engaged couple could walk into a store and record their chosen patterns. Family and friends could consult the list and buy accordingly. Macy's followed quickly. Other department stores joined the rush. And here's what's telling. Those first registries didn't contain kitchen gadgets, or camping gear, or a honeymoon fund. They contained three things: china, crystal, and silver. The holy trinity of middle-class aspiration. And all three of them existed to serve one single social ritual: the formal dinner party. And this is where the story truly clicks into place. Between 1940 and 1960, the American middle class expanded at a pace never seen before, or since. Home ownership surged, wages rose, and suddenly, millions of ordinary Americans had the space and the means to host gatherings that had once belonged only to the wealthy. The centerpiece of it all was the dining room. The sociologist Alice Juliet, who studies food and society, describes these dinner parties as painstaking productions that also function to display a person's class status. As she puts it, it's about participation in material culture in America, as much as it's about hospitality. The dinner party wasn't just a meal, it was a performance. And every performance needs props. You needed china in the correct pattern. You needed crystal stemware. And you needed sterling silver flatware, laid out precisely. Sterling silver, by the way, is a specific alloy. 92.5% silver, 7.5% copper or other metals. It's beautiful, it's heavy. It feels substantial in your hand. And it is absolutely, mercilessly impractical for everyday life. Here's what nobody mentions when they hand you a velvet-lined box of sterling at your wedding. Silver tarnishes constantly. That thin, dark layer forms whenever the metal meets hydrogen sulfide, which is simply present in the air around you. Contact with wool or felt or certain foods makes it worse. To keep it presentable, you have to polish it. And the polish has to be reapplied every single time you use it. You cannot put it in the dishwasher. The harsh detergents and the high heat will eventually turn sterling gray or white, dull, and permanently non-reflective. So every piece must be hand-washed, hand-dried, and carefully stored, which means you have a beautiful set of flatware that demands half an hour of labor every time you eat dinner. So what do? You put it away. You save it for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for the dinner party you're definitely going to throw someday. And then someday never quite arrives. Or it arrives twice a year. And the silver spends the other 363 days slowly tarnishing in a drawer. Silversmiths will tell you, quite correctly, that sterling was made to be used, that if you simply wash it properly after each meal, It will be perfectly fine. They're right, but they're arguing against human nature. Because when something takes that much effort, and when the culture keeps whispering that it's for special occasions only, the path of least resistance is to leave it exactly where it is. And that is the paradox at the very heart of this tradition. The gift was aspirational and unusable at the same time. It represented a lifestyle families performed a few times a year, but felt obligated to be ready for always. It was keeping up appearances, made solid, in metal. For at least 3 centuries, a well-used dining room was the aspiration of countless households across the Western world. But the key word there is was, because the formal dining room and everything in it has been in steep decline for decades. And the reasons are cultural, economic, and deeply gendered. When a woman's social standing no longer depended on the table she could set, the room lost its purpose, and with the room went the silver. Since the early 2000s, sterling flatware has been in steady decline. Formal dining faded. Registries shifted toward the practical, the casual, the contemporary. Sterling stopped being a standard part of setting up a household, and most younger couples marrying today don't know the first thing about choosing a silver pattern. Honestly, most of them don't want to. Which brings us to right now, and to what people have started calling the great stuff transfer. Trillions of dollars are moving from the silent generation and the baby boomers down to their heirs, with estimates running into the tens of trillions over the coming decades. But it isn't only money, it's things. Houses full of things, cabinets full of things, and an enormous amount of it is sterling silver flatware, given as a wedding gift 40, 50, 60 years ago, and used a handful of times. The estate sale industry has certainly noticed. There's now so much silver flowing through estate sales that one seller joked that weighing it all makes her team feel like drug dealers. But this isn't the first time America has opened those drawers. It happened once before, and it was a catastrophe. In the late 1970s, 2 Texas billionaires, Nelson Bunker Hunt and his brother William Herbert Hunt, attempted something staggering. They tried to corner the world's silver market, to quietly buy and hoard so much physical silver that they would effectively control the price of it. And it worked. For a while. Between 1979 and 1980, silver went from $6.54 an ounce to more than $38. At its peak, it approached $50, a rise of nearly 500%. And the country went a little mad. Silver burglaries spiked. Hospitals struggled to afford X-ray film because film required silver. Tiffany's was forced to raise its prices dramatically. And in kitchens and dining rooms all across America, ordinary families began melting down their heirloom silver flatware. Think about that. The wedding gift. The one from the felt-lined box. The one grandmother had been given on her wedding day and had polished and had saved for a special occasion. People carried it to dealers by the armful and watched it be weighed and melted and turned into an ingot. And then came Thursday, the 27th of March, 1980. The price collapsed. In a single day, silver fell below $11 an ounce. The Hunt brothers came within hours of taking the whole financial system down with them and had to be rescued by an emergency loan. In 1988, the courts ruled that what they had done was market manipulation. They were convicted. The bubble was over in weeks, but the silver was gone forever. Melted, anonymous, untraceable. 100 years of family patterns, wedding dates engraved on handles, monograms of women whose names nobody remembers now, all of it poured into bars. Which brings us to today, because something remarkable has happened to silver, and almost nobody has connected it to the boxes in their parents' cabinets. In 2025, the price of silver rose by more than 100%, the largest annual gain ever recorded. And in January of 2026, it touched an all-time high of just over $120 an ounce, higher than the Hunt brothers ever drove it, higher than it has ever been in history. So, the silver your grandmother never used, the silver that sat in a drawer for 60 years, the silver given to her as a cruel kindness, as a status symbol, as a prop for a social ritual that no longer exists, is suddenly worth more than it has ever been worth. And so, once again, all across the country, those drawers are being opened. The chests are being carried into shops. The heirlooms are being weighed. Nobody can tell you what the price will do next. Markets rise and markets fall. But there is one thing the year 1980 can tell us with absolute certainty. The people who melted their family's silver in that frenzy did not get it back when the price collapsed a few weeks later. The money went. And the forks with the worn monograms, the ones their mothers had been given on their wedding day, those were simply gone. A price can recover. A pattern that has been melted cannot. Step back far enough, and you can see the whole shape of this thing. Thousands of years ago, a bride was given silver because it might one day save her. It was security. It was independence. It was a real asset in a world where she could own almost nothing else. Then, slowly, the meaning shifted. Silver became a symbol, a prop in a performance, a way to prove a family's worth to the neighbors. Then it became a habit. You got married, you got silver. Everyone got silver. Nobody asked why anymore. And then the world quietly changed around it. Formal dining faded. Women's lives opened up. The dinner party lost its power, and the silver just sat in its drawer, waiting for an occasion that would never come. The real reason every bride was given silver she'd never use, it was never really about the silver. It was about what the silver stood for. Security, then status, then aspiration, then obligation. Each generation inherited not just the forks, but the meaning attached to them. And when the meaning finally faded, all that was left was a box of beautiful, impractical objects that nobody quite knew what to do with. Somewhere in America, right now, someone is holding a silver spoon that was given to their grandmother in 1952. Maybe they're about to sell it. Maybe they're setting the table. Either way, they're holding 70 years of history in their hand, and most of them have no idea.